Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Wednesday, July 24th, 2024. I am Dave Biddle. I'll be joined by Patrick Murphy and Steve Helwagen here in just a moment from Indianapolis for Big Ten Media Days. All of Ohio State stuff was yesterday. It was fantastic. Ryan Day, Denzel Burke, Jack Sawyer, Emeka Egbuka, fantastic insights, and we got to talk to a lot of other Big Ten coaches and players. Commissioner Tony Petitti. New Ohio State AD Ross Bjork was in the house. It was a great day. We're going to get to all of that. Before I tell you guys about that, I got to tell you again about joy mode. You know, I mean, I think I speak for most men. If I'm not speaking for you, I mean, you're a lucky guy. I think I speak for most men when I say we want to have better sex. And for the sake of our partner, we might need to have better sex. The issue is that over-the-counter pills contain unregulated chemicals. They suggest unsafe doses, and they include the risk of several other health problems. That is why we have partnered with our friends over at Joy Mode. Whether you're looking to spice up your intimate moments or increase your confidence in the bedroom, Joy Mode makes all natural and science-backed supplements dedicated to helping men perform better across their core functions. All right, here, you got to pay attention to this one. So go to usejoymode.com/bucknuts to get 20% off with code BUCKNUTS at checkout. Again, that's 20% off and free shipping with code BUCKNUTS at JOYMODE.com/Bucknuts. Great sex solved naturally. Sometimes it can even lead to engagements. Hi, Patrick.
I did.
Now, I think, to be fair, I think probably, maybe I'm being nice, you probably would have gotten engaged with or without Joy Mode, but it had to help. I mean, he's not having it. All right, boys, welcome in. We got Patrick Murphy. We got Steve Helwagen live from Indy.
Been a long day, Dave.
What was the biggest takeaway from today? We'll start with Patrick. Did you have like a biggest, and you don't have to name just one thing. Do you have like a biggest takeaway from today, Pat? And then we'll go to Steve.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it last week. Like, it's just good to be back with football stuff. I think that first and foremost, you know, it's here, right? This is the start of everything. We'll be back out at practice in just over a week when the Buckeyes take the field at fall camp. But I think it's clear, not only talking to the Ohio State players and Ryan Day, who we've talked to throughout the last several months, but talking to other people, both media, players, coaches around the Big Ten, like the view is that this Buckeye team is pretty special. And obviously they're going to have to go out there. They're going to have to take care of business every week. You know, they're going to have to get to where they want to go. But everyone views this Ohio State team, even in a conference that always views Ohio State as one of, if not the best team. They view this team as different, a team that can go out, not only win the Big Ten, but maybe win the national championship. You know, we kind of get stuck in our little bubble in Columbus or Buckeye Nation, and you know, maybe we buy into hype some years. No, this is everybody thinking this. And you know that because of some of the preseason rankings and things like that have started to come out. But you talk to some really smart people at these events, and everyone's excited about what this Buckeye team, or nervous, I guess, depending on who you're talking to, about what this Buckeye team is going to bring to the field this fall. So for me, just everyone I talk to about the Buckeyes is like, you know, that's a really loaded roster. You know, if there's not even the same kind of ifs that we have where we're talking about if the offensive line or if the quarterback, you know, most people are like, yeah, that's a loaded roster. And, you know, even if the quarterback play isn't great, this team can still be really good. So that was really something that stood out to me, that everyone views this Ohio State team as kind of what we've heard from the players, natty or bust.
Yeah, Steve. Yeah. I mean, same thing. Did anything like stand out to you that you weren't expecting? It doesn't have to be something you weren't expecting. Just what stood out to you the most yesterday?
Yeah, I was very impressed talking to the players. Jack Sawyer kind of went through the entire process of where he tried to re-recruit his classmates to come back and join him in 2024. He said he had made the decision to come back before Ohio State played Missouri in the Cotton Bowl, and then after the game had a group chat or a text thread where he was trying to work on a number of his teammates who were kind of on the fence about going to the NFL, and that the 3 losses to Michigan have kind of lit a fire inside of him and his team, that they want to come back and set the record straight on that front, get some redemption on their way out, get a pair of gold pants win a Big Ten and win the national championship. And, just impressed with the business-like approach by Emeka Egbuka. They tried to get him to feed into the Michigan situation, and he's like, I ain't worried about that. I'm worried about, all the work we got to do to put ourselves in position to have a great year. And that really kind of rang true. And Denzel Burke was kind of the same way. He said, I didn't come back for, screwing around, messing around, BS. He said, I came back to beat Michigan, win the national championship. So, they've kind of got it. It's I don't know where the championship game even is this year, but it's like, I think it's Atlanta, isn't it?
That sounds
I think
right.
it's Atlanta.
Yeah.
It's Atlanta or bust for these guys. And, that's kind of their mindset. And I think very impressed as well with Ryan Day. He spent all day. He did more media today here than I can ever recall. They kept him busy all day long with one thing after another. It was crazy. And by the end of the day, you could tell he was kind of wearing down a little bit in the breakout session. We're going to have that. We have that on the site. Obviously, you can check that out. But to me, he was very impressive, I thought, as well, and kind of laying out his plan for this team and the preparations going into the start of preseason camp on August 1st.
Patrick, I asked Coach Day, and I knew he probably wasn't going to answer it, but I was hoping to at least get a smirk out of him. I think I might have. I was like, Coach, like, quarterbacks, do you kind of know who your guy is right now? You just don't want to make it public? Or is it really up in the air? And he kind of gave a kind of a coach speak answer. I mean, it's Will Howard, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. But I think they want Will Howard to earn it, right? They don't want to just give it to him just because they brought him in from the transfer portal. And I think it's not quite Justin Fields. I mean, Justin Fields had no competition. No offense to Chris Chugginoff and whoever else was in that room. Yeah, there you go. There is legitimate competition for Will Howard. I know people talk about Devin Brown's injuries, but that's a guy that they really like. Obviously, the young guys as well, if they can come along. So they don't want to hand this job to Will Howard just because he's a transfer portal quarterback that has the experience of playing before. But yeah, I mean, if he doesn't win the job, I think Ryan Day would be surprised. He hasn't said that. He won't say that. But certainly they didn't go out and land a transfer portal quarterback like Will Howard, who has the experience of winning a Big 12 championship and playing in X amount of games, to just have him come and be a backup to Devin Brown, right? That wasn't the intent when they went into the transfer portal. They didn't need to go to the transfer portal to get a guy like Will Howard if they believed that Devin Brown was going to win the job. So could something happen in fall camp where Devin Brown is just the better guy for 2 weeks and they're like, look, we're going with Devin and Will can, continue to push and we'll see what happens? Yes, that is within the realm of possibilities, but I think it is far more likely that Will Howard, now multiple months into his Ohio State career, settled into things. He talked about that recently at the special skills camp that Ohio State did. I think it's more likely he comes out and looks like the player that was at Kansas State, but now with the weapons around him that he'll have with the Buckeyes. And, I don't know how long it'll be until Ryan Day makes the announcement, but he said during the availability on Tuesday, 2 weeks maybe. He dropped that. He said for the first 4 practices, which are going to be open to the public, they would probably continue to go with rotating those guys on 2 different fields like they did a lot in the spring. But I think they want to get this solved as quickly as possible and get that quarterback announced, get him ready to go, and kind of be done with this conversation.
Steve, I want to speak on the quarterback competition, but I also want to get your thoughts on if Will Howard is the guy. What are your expectations for Will Howard? And you can say anything you want about the quarterback competition.
Yeah. First of all, I did hear what Coach said about the reps, and I think it makes perfect sense that the first 4 days that everybody's going to get basically an equal shot. And then at that point, they're probably going to have to pare it down to 3 guys who are going to get meaningful reps, because time will keep on ticking into the future, and the first game will be there before they know it. You got to pare it down and get 3 guys, reasonably ready. 2 guys in particular, but 3 really, with saying probably ready to play. So Howard, I expect him to have a very good year. I think you look in his eyes and I see somebody who is a winner, somebody who is capable. I've been impressed with what I've seen in person. I know people are like, but I want to see more. I want to see him throw downfield and different things like that. Well, the protection has to be there to allow you to do that as well. It's part and parcel. So, the quarterback's going to be the function of the people around him more times than not. And I think they've got really good people around him. I talked to a guy from UCLA who covered Chip Kelly today, and he was like, rubbing his hands together because he says, I know what Chip Kelly did with 3 and 4 stars at UCLA. I want to see what he does with 4 and 5 stars at Ohio State. He says, I am going to make appointment viewing to watch Ohio State all season long to see what Chip Kelly does on offense. And that's the Ohio State offense. I just did a story on Jack Sawyer. Did you know the Ohio State defense went from giving up 21 points a game in 2022 to 11.2 points per game last year?
Not bad.
And they have 9 starters back on defense. So, man, they're going to get that thing down to single digits. And, when that happens, Will Howard doesn't need to soar tall buildings in a single bound. He just needs to not turn the ball over and put the ball in the end zone. So that's makes his life a little easier too.
Could be getting them fitted for rings. Okay.
Mine's in my golf bag. My wife saw up. You talked about. I've been married 30 years, Pat, and I always say, don't ever get married, don't ever have kids. I violated both of those rules. Don't go.
Pat's like halfway. Well, he's not even technically married yet, but he's
not married
yet. He's halfway to danger, isn't he?
Speaking of rings, I left mine in my golf bag, and that does get me some crap every now and then. But
I lost mine in the ocean. I got to get a new one.
Dude,
that is one of the things I'm least excited
because I lost some weight. That's my excuse, at least.
You don't even notice it.
I lost so much weight, it just slid right off my.
You don't even really notice it.
Yeah,
it really is the truth. I got to get a new wedding ring. I really do, because I lost my wedding ring in the ocean.
Don't get married. Don't have kids. Don't go in the ocean. There you go. Steve,
there was a shark attack today down in Hilton, or yesterday down in Hilton.
Shark party. Anthony Jeselnik, a shark party. All right, offensive line. If you're an Ohio State fan, how confident are you in this offensive line? Steve, we'll start with you, and we'll go to Patrick.
Well, I was emboldened hearing Coach Day speak today. He sang the praises of Josh Fryer, who's had a great offseason. They're viewing him as the right tackle right now. Right guard and center seem to be unsettled. It seems like Seth McLaughlin and Carson Hinsman are both going to rep at center and right guard. And Tegra Toshbola, I got to get this right. I always screwed up. I say Toshbola, but it's Shabola.
There you go.
We saw him at the foundation event, and he blocks out the sun, dude. He is
he's
as big as a house. So, how are you going to keep him off the field? And then Luke Montgomery's like the young prodigy too. So you got 4 guys for 2 spots there, and it'll shake out. It'll work out. On the other side, Donovan Jackson and Josh Simmons, everybody is certain that's going to be okay. So, I felt a little better hearing it today. But until, you hate to get into the season and not have a solid 5-man unit. So, and then bringing people in by different drives and stuff. So I just like continuity, and I just like it to be settled, and I just want it to look right. So,
Patrick, what do you think? I was surprised to hear him say that it was a little still in flux with center, because everything I had heard from people I trust said Seth McLaughlin will be the center, period. Not like 95%, like will be the center. And then it'll be like Hinsman probably at right guard with Tegra pushing him big time. Tegra can also play right tackle, but they like Fryer, Steve articulated, with Luke Montgomery in the mix. I was surprised to hear Coach Day say that. Do you think that was more just kind of making the competition, pushing that into camp, or do you think it's a legit competition between McLaughlin and Hinsman at center?
Take everything I said about Will Howard and transfer that over to Seth McLaughlin. Again, you didn't bring him in to not play center. Now, again, he has to earn it. Carson Hinsman, he's a returning starter who had an up and down first season as a starter. So, you're going to have some competition there. But Day also said at one point, and maybe this slipped a little bit, like Seth's our center. And then he was like, well, there's going to still be competition there. I think really what it is that Seth is the center and Carson can play there, but is also competing at guard. And so It's really up to Carson whether or not he wins the guard job or is the backup center. And I think that's how it's going to play out. One thing I wanted to add, Josh Simmons, Jack Sawyer was asked about him and talked about he has the best feet of pretty much anyone he's played against, except a few guys. And one of those guys is Paris Johnson. So he said just the way he moves, his feet. I think you started to see that at the end of last season. So, if he can be a very solid left tackle, you got Donovan Jackson next to him. I think Seth McLaughlin will be just fine. If Josh Fryer really has made those steps that we've heard about and kind of transformed his body, now you're really only talking about one spot on the offensive line that maybe is up in the air. And I think you can manage that a little bit. And we just heard Steve talking about Tegra. I really believe in Tegra. I started to hear things about him at the end of spring. Not that I don't think the other guys can do it, but it sounded like things started to click for him at the end of spring. I think you saw that some in the spring game.
We're going to talk much more Ohio State football in just a second. Stick with us. We got plenty more to talk about, but I want to tell you guys about our friends at Manscaped, a great deal you can get. Sizzle alert. This summer, let the only thing smoking at your barbecue be the grill, not your grooming game. Get ready for the ultimate cookout season with Manscaped. Whether you're flipping burgers or cannonballing in the pool, make sure your meat looks neat with the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra. Right, Steve? Fire up your grooming routine and keep it cool with Manscaped. Head to manscaped.com and use code Bucknuts for 20% off and free shipping. Patrick was doing it way before there was even like the free shipping and the 20% off. Now he's just getting it all the time. So code Bucknuts, 20% off, manscaped.com. Let's make this summer sizzle for all the right reasons. Again, get 20% off and free shipping with the code Bucknuts at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code Bucknuts. Manscaped, the perfect way to get your patties sizzling hot this summer. I'm here to entertain, my friends. That's what I do. Okay.
I do. I'm a Manscaped guy. I have it.
I know. I remember the first time I did an ad. I could go upstairs and get the Manscaped. I know. You should have used the 20% off. It was a free shipping.
I did it too early.
You did. You're going to need to re-up, I would think, at some point. Now that you're getting, well, maybe you won't now that you're getting married. Oh gosh, are we on? Is this thing on? Sorry, hon, if you saw that. Totally didn't mean that at all. All right, so Will Linebacker. This is one thing I wanted to get to, but Coach Dave was doing so many interviews, and the people going before me for my one-on-ones took 10 minutes. I got 3 minutes of one-on-one, so I didn't get to ask about Will Linebacker. Get your thoughts on it. We'll start with Patrick. We'll go to Steve. Do you guys think it's CJ Hicks and Sonny Styles are going to rotate? Do you think it's going to be CJ Hicks? Do you think it's going to be Sonny Styles? Do you think there's going to be more 3 linebacker sets than what we've seen the first 2 years of the Jim Knowles era? Just break down. I'm assuming Cody Simon's going to be the starting Mike. Will Linebacker, what do you expect to see there with CJ Hicks and Sonny Styles, Patrick?
Yeah, this is probably the biggest unknown for me. And maybe it's not the most impactful because whoever fits in there will probably be good. We're talking about 2 former 5-star kids, right? But I don't know. I mean, spring ball, we all know CJ Hicks worked with the first team the most. And so it seems like it's going to be him. I just still have flashbacks of CJ Hicks on the field, and it has not been good in games. So, I'm a big advocate of guys can improve. I think people kind of forget that sometimes, that's what the offseason is for. And so hopefully CJ Hicks took that next step. Sonny Styles, this sounds like the transition from that safety nickel spot, even playing that deep safety at times, is going all right. But I'm going to need to see these 2 guys in action. And I'm not talking about fall camp. I'm going to need to see them in game action before I feel really comfortable about this position. Now, I do think you could see more 3 linebacker sets, but that means you're taking somebody else off the field, probably Jordan Hancock, who's been very good. Also, the talent around the linebackers, and I include Cody Simon in that, maybe can mask some growing pains, whichever guy is in there. So, I'm uncertain about this one, but I also don't know if it's something that's going to be a glaring issue once they take the field, because I think this defense is going to be so good. Steve outlined earlier their improvement from 2022 to 2023. I think you could see maybe not quite the same jump, but you're definitely going to see continued improvement with those guys coming back another year. You add Caleb Downs. I think you can hide a player a little bit if needed.
Steve, same question, man. What do you expect at this will linebacker spot? Sonny Styles, CJ Hicks, just a couple of 5-star dudes. No big deal. I mean, do you think they're going to rotate? Do you think one or the other is going to pull ahead? You think they're going to have 3 linebacker sets? What do you expect to see?
Yeah, I think it's going to be real interesting to see what the mad scientist Jim Knowles comes up with, because
James Laurinaitis.
They want to keep these guys happy and get them as much playing time, each of them, as they can. But at the same time, you got to play great defense, and I think that you got to play each guy's strengths and what each of them can do. And I think Sonny Styles at times had some great moments, and at times he had some learning issues, some learning moments that came in there. CJ Hicks is a great unknown. We've never seen him really play much on the defense on Saturday afternoon. So to me, it's going to be a process. Does Cody Simon, is he an every down guy too? I mean, what does this look like? Do you go 3 corners, 2 safeties, and 2 linebackers almost all the time, or is there going to be something more to it? So I'm sure Knowles has got some ideas on how to do this, and down and distance and what the opponent can do will factor into it. And I think, we'll watch the first 3 or 4 games and try and get a gauge for it, before the bullets really start to fly. That's when by Iowa, you got to know, by Oregon, you got to be certain. So, it'll be there before they know it.
And I do think, real quick, Dave, that to the point you just made, Steve, like, they've got time to figure this out. It's not like you're playing Notre Dame week 1 like 2 years ago, or Notre Dame week 3 like last season. Like, you can ease into this season a little bit. And like, as much as I would like, and I think fans would like to have an exciting marquee non-conference opponent, this may actually shape up well for them. Those 3 games that you're going to be heavily favored in, Michigan State on the road, but not a team that's going to scare a lot of people. So all of these questions we've talked about, I think you can find answers into the season if need be. Hopefully they don't have that problem.
For those wondering about punter, I did ask Coach Day about that because the sexiest topic, right? Who's going to be the punter? But I was curious because when Nick McLarty committed, you're thinking, okay, he's a scholarship kid from Australia, the 6'7", 250-pound kid kicking balls out of the stadium. They're bringing a kid in scholarship to be a punter. He's going to be the starter, right? We've seen it time and time again. We saw it with Cam Johnston coming in from Australia, time and time again. We've seen it twice. Maybe this will be again.
It feels like time.
So it was Cam Johnston got a scholarship, 2013, came right in was a starter. Jesse Mirko from Australia got the scholarship right as a starter as a true freshman. So when McLarty got the scholarship, I'm like, okay, he's the starter now. Then they get the kid from Buffalo who is actually pretty good. And Ryan Day said it's going to be a good competition. I love that they're leaving no stone unturned. I just want to throw that out there for those that are wondering about punter. I did ask Coach Day about that. You can get on Bucknuts and hear his response. But it's going to be a good battle in camp between Nick McLarty and the young man from Buffalo, whose name escapes my mind right now, who transferred in. He's got good experience at the Buffalo school record for punting average last year, averaged 44 yards a punt, 30th in the country. So that's going to be cool. I do want to ask you guys about this. So again, with Patrick, because I know you wanted me to ask Coach Day about this, and I had it written down, but that lady who was really hot to trot was getting him out of there. I'm like, listen, I've waited a half hour. You're getting me out of here 2 minutes when these people go for 10 minutes, but okay, whatever. Anyway, I didn't get to ask me your question about managing the season. Everybody's saying, myself included, it's a 3 or 4 game regular season, right? 4 games if you're being nice to Iowa, 3 if you're not. So it's Iowa, Oregon, Penn State, and Michigan. All right. And then you got to get to the national championship game, win the big everything. What you got to get there, though, was your point, Patrick. You got to get there first, right? So I never got a chance to ask Coach Day about that. Did he address that in the breakout room at all?
No, and I positioned myself poorly to ask questions, so that's on me. But this is a question I will get for Coach Day at some point. I did ask both Denzel Burke and Emeka Egbuka about it. It's a better question for the coaching staff, but I think the players have to be cognizant of this too. You're not going out week 1 with a bang. You have to go out and play Akron, right? So how do you go from, okay, we're playing for a national championship. We're here to win a national championship. And then you come out against Akron. And then you've got week 2 and week 3. Oh, and even before that, you've got to get through fall camp. This is a team with so many players that have gone through 3 or 4 fall camps already. It's a grind, right? But it's an important grind. So you've got to get through all of this. and make sure you don't slip up at some point, or you don't have a bad practice that costs you later on, so that you're ready for Oregon, and then you're ready for Penn State, and that you're ready for Michigan, and you're ready for potentially a Big Ten championship game. So, it's not like they can win the national championship in week 3. They've got to navigate this season, and it's going to be a long one if they're going to get to where they're going. So I think that's a really interesting narrative here that I'm going to continue to pursue throughout fall camp, is just kind of how they handle managing the season as a whole, as opposed to just these 3 or 4 games that everyone's pointing to.
Steve, what's something I'm leaving out? What's something that you want to get off your chest? It could be like Michigan. You asking Tony Petitti, who gave a 13-page report that laid it all out. You asked him straight up about the Michigan scandal.
Yeah.
His answer on that.
And I wasn't doing that to be a dick. I did it basically just stood up and said, hey, here you are in your first full year as the commissioner, and you got put in a position that Jim Delaney was never put in or Warren. I mean, Warren had some tough deals there with COVID, obviously, but
navigated it beautifully, might I say.
Oh God, he I'll tell you what, if the water's ever choppy, that's the guy I want, at the helm. But
he's the Bears' problem now.
Yeah, good God.
Speaking of problems.
So I just asked, hey, what was that all about for you? Put an untenable position, how you managed it. Who did you lean on? And he said it was the staff of the Big Ten, that they sat down collectively, and I'm sure he had help from people at the colleges at different schools, and probably the other 13 schools were telling him, bro, you got to do something here. They've disadvantaged all of us here. And I think that's what we saw. He came down with the 3-game suspension for Jim Harbaugh, but they were still permitted to play in the Big Ten championship, won the Big Ten championship, won the national championship. And now we're going to see. I asked also if he had any inclination from NCAA when they're going to release their final finding, and if there'll be any sanctions. Maybe there won't be, but I find that hard to believe. I think something's going to come out of this at some point, but who knows what it'll be.
That's the thing, that you asked the man himself. It wasn't like, I'm sure he had a lot of help, but the man's a lawyer himself.
Yeah,
and he also started out with Dear Ward. It wasn't like very formal, like Mr. Manual Athlete. It was like Dear Ward, and then he just went on for 13 pages of
Dearest Ward.
He laid it all out. And your boy Brett McMurphy obviously did not read that, or he would be like, "Oh, some Ohio State reporters, blah blah blah." It's like, listen, buddy, read the report, and then get back to me. It's all laid out there. Very interesting.
That people think I have an axe to grind or anything like that. It was the farthest thing from it. I think that the answer he gave was more than anything I ever expected.
Yeah.
I just figured he was going to slough it under the rug and say, I don't want to really.
You asked the question well, though.
Yeah, I did.
You were put in an untenable situation. You kind of smiled. I just rewatched
it was a hotel room.
His
leadership and his ability. And he said he reflected. We all know Major League Baseball has had scandals like the Houston Astros.
He mentioned that, yeah.
The Houston Astros, stealing signs and different things.
Steroid era. Yeah.
The steroid era and everything else. He said he borrowed from his experience from Major League Baseball, and he worked obviously with Fox, et cetera. So
Pat's a St. Louis Cardinals fan. He knows a lot about the steroid era.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Big Mac. Steve, imagine if Eric Davis would have got on steroids.
Yeah. Or if Griffey had stretched, or a cheetah doesn't.
Sammy Sosa was like a 12th of the player as Eric Davis, a 20th of the player. I feel like I'm being mean to Eric Davis here. Sammy Sosa was not even a fraction of Eric Davis. Imagine Eric Davis on steroids. Damn.
I don't think the two of you have ever done a podcast together that hasn't diverted to the Reds somehow.
Well, I mean, we're glutton for punishment, obviously. I don't even know why I care about him anymore, Steve. Terrible.
You hang out with me, so I know that that's true.
Yeah.
Terrible.
One of these years.
I'm too loyal.
Yep.
Too loyal. All right. I'm glad I'm loyal to these guys. These guys are great. Patrick Murphy, Steve Helwagen. I really appreciate you guys taking time to do this. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Keep it locked to Bucknuts. We're going to have a ton more content from here in Indy. Big Ten Media Days. Patrick Murphy, Steve Helwagen. I'm Dave Biddle. Thanks to you. Hope everyone has a great rest of your day.